Hi there. All right, this is the next video for the CO2 car designs 4 or 5. I forget which video we're on, but we're going to continue wherever we left off. All right, so we've got, we were starting to draw some wheels, and we've got them sort of on this front view, but let's get them on the top view. And I'm going to change my layers up here because last time we created a wheels and axles layer. So I'm going to show what the wheels will look like up from the top view. And we're going to use orthographic projection. Fancy word, it just means we're going to use information from down here in this view and sort of project it from one plane 90 degrees to another plane. And it's easier than it sounds, okay? So we're going to just draw a couple of lines first. L and enter. And I want to snap to the quadrant of this circle. And I'm going to aim it. I'm going to go all the way through this car. I don't know how far I want it yet, so I'm just going to go all the way through. And I'll hit spacebar to end the command and spacebar to restart the command. And then I'm going to get the quadrant of this wheel. And if it's wanting to snap to different spots and it's hard to tell what it's snapping to, you can zoom in. That way you make sure it's on the quadrant. And I can back out. Do that there as well. And I'll hit spacebar. So from the top view, the wheel is going to be shown as a rectangle, and that's where the two ends are going to go. And then we got to figure out, well, how thick is this front wheel? Let's go and look at our design requirements. All right, so the front diameter, we already dealt with that. The front width at surface contact point. And I believe I was going to make it 2 millimeters just to make sure we're not too close to the 1.5. All right, so how far away from the car body do I want to come with my wheel? Probably not much. I may have a little washer in there, so I'm going to just offset it a 0.5 millimeter. So here's what we can do. I'm kind of zooming in. This is the line where the car body is, and that's where the wheel is. I want to hit L for line and enter or spacebar. Hover over this intersection, and then I'll aim it straight down. 0.5, enter. And by hovering, it's using object snap tracking. It starts at 0.5 down from where we started. And I'll click there. And then I'll hit spacebar to end the command. O for offset, enter. And distance, we are going to do 2 millimeters wide. So 2, enter, and then I'll click that line. And I'll aim it below, I'll offset it down. So I'll click somewhere over here. And then enter to end the offset command. All right, so we've almost got our rectangle. I'm going to select just these cyan colored or bluish colored lines. And to do that, I'll come over here. Let me do this first. If I start over here, like down and to the left, and I click and let go, when I move to the right, it's this blue sort of window. And anything I want to select, it has to be totally within that boundary. So the lines will kind of glow when they'll be selected. So it would only select those two lines. I'll hit escape to deselect that. Now if I come over to the right and down below, I click and let go, then I get this green instead of blue. I get green. And that means anything I cross over, it will select. Sorry. So it's getting that line, that line. So I'll do that. So I get those 4 lines. So it's a quick way to select things. Now with those selected, I'll hit TR for trim and enter. That way it won't consider any other lines as I'm trimming this stuff away. Otherwise it might take me a little time. And if you hold down with the trim command, you can kind of do this and select a bunch of different stuff at once. I'm still getting used to the new way the trim command works. All right, so I'll hit spacebar to end the command. So there is my wheel, and it's in like separate line segments, right? So if I select all of those and I hit J for join and enter, It will turn it into more of a rectangle that's all one object. It's easier to copy and move and all of that. So I'll hit escape, zoom out. So I have a wheel and I want another wheel on the other side, right? I don't want a lopsided car. And the quickest way to do that is to mirror it. So I'm going to pre-select it. MI for mirror, spacebar. First point on the mirror line will be the midpoint of the car. I'll aim it to the right, click, and hit enter. And there's the other wheel. And let's go ahead and show the axle as well. We can do this the same way. L and enter. And I'll get the quadrant of the axle there. I'll go all the way through. I'll do the same thing here. And I'm just hitting L and enter, spacebar, enter, just like we've been doing. I'm moving a little quicker now. If you're new to AutoCAD, you should be kind of picking up on some of this, hopefully. And the axle will go just a little ways through the wheel and then stop. How far? Let's say maybe 3 millimeters. We could do shorter than that later if we need to, but let's just make it 3 right now. So O for offset, 3, enter. And since I made it a rectangle, if I click this and try to offset it, it makes another rectangle. I don't really want that, so I'm going to hit escape. I'll kind of zoom in a little bit more. L for line, enter, and I'll hover over this intersection and then aim it up. 3, enter. So it starts the line 3 above that point, and I'll click here, straight over to the left, and then I'll hit enter. And I'll go ahead and do that down here as well. So L, enter, hover over that intersection, bring it down, 3, enter. And I'll click there and enter. I'll pre-select these. And I like to use the box selection like that, but you can, if you click and hold down the mouse, you can do this sort of, I forget what it's called, this swirly whirly selection method. All right, you can do that too. I don't really like it, but hey, if it's your thing, that's fine. And I'll select that as well. So all the lines there, and then I'll hit TR for trim. I'll hit enter. And I'm going to leave it like that for right now. All right, so that looks pretty good. Later on, we may get as detailed as adding washers, retainer clips, stuff like that. But that represents the wheels and axle from the top view. And let's do it for the back view as well. So I believe we made these circles the same diameter. If I select them and hover over this grip point, I can see it's 18 there and 18 there. So they are the same. So I'll hit escape. So we can do this. Let's do, we'll select this rectangle and then CO for copy. And it wants a base point. I'm going to choose the center here as a base point. So that's sort of like the handle with which I'm grabbing it, right? So, and I'll move it to the center of this one. So it copied it the same exact distance as the ones below. Now, my back wheels are going to need to be thicker or wider. And let's see how much. All right, rear diameter, rear width. All right, so 12 is the minimum, 18 the maximum. Let's make it 13 to be safe. All right, so right now this was 2. So what I can do is there's these blue boxes on the corners, these grip points. You can use those for different things, but there's one right here as well. I click there and I can stretch this as long as it's a rectangle. And I'll aim it down. And so I want to get to 13, I'm at 2, so that'd be another 11. So if I hover over this corner, I should see that it is 13 wide and the diameter is 36. That's what I want. All right. And I'll hit escape and we'll mirror this one as well. So I'll pre-select MI, spacebar, click there on the midpoint, aim it to the right or the left. Someone's knocking on my doors. Hang on a second.
shop real fast so I can get the tools.
Okay, go for it.
Because I gotta wire my truck.
All right, so we were in the middle of the mirror command. I can aim it right or left and click and enter. Tell you what, Kellen's going to be quite popular. He's in all my videos now, knocking on my door every morning. All right.
Well, you should show up earlier then.
All right. So we need the axle here as well. So let's do this. We'll do the same method, but these are all separate lines. So let's go ahead and choose all those lines and hit J for join. So it's all one rectangle. And with that selected, CO for copy. Same thing, this is our base point. And then it'll copy over here to the center there. And it's not long enough, right? So let's extend it. And we'll go the same amount that we did the wheels, 11 and 11. I'll hit escape. If you remember, these two lines were like the furthest out you could get with your wheels and axles and everything. So we're not even close. So we're doing just fine there. I'll hit escape. All right, so we've got wheels, we've got axles, we've got the basics of a car. Looking back at our criteria and constraints, let's see if there's anything else I wanted to look at before we start modifying our designs to something a little more aerodynamic. All right, so we've got, there was one thing I wanted to check. I think it was on the CO2 chamber stuff. All right, so lowest point of chamber to the race surface. So now that we have wheels, we can do this. We'll switch to a different layer, parameters, and L for line. L, enter, there we go. I'll hover over this quadrant and then bring it over here. I'm just going to start somewhere out here, and I'll aim it to the right, somewhere just out here. And I'll hit enter. It's just to sort of represent the ground or the racetrack surface, okay? So from there to the bottom of the chamber, can it only be between 26 and 40? And we can check that distance with the distance command, DI, and enter. So from here, the bottom of our CO2 chamber hole, down to here is 32.4125. And that is in between 26 and 40, so we're good. I just realized I want to change these lines so it's not as confusing. I'm going to go ahead and select those and put them on the parameters layer and hit escape, because the white lines represent where the hole actually is, and this is like the sort of buffer zone or safety zone around it. And I want to do the same up there. You can do MA. It's the match properties command, MA spacebar, and I'll click here. And then I can click here and here and here, and it'll match the properties or match the layers or colors or line types. It matches those properties. All right, I'm going to hit Control S to save what I've got. Apparently, I don't have permission to save on Google Drive. I'll fix that later. All right, so at this point, we would start trying to figure out the shape of our car, okay? And we're going to use some of the lines that we've drawn here to kind of guide us with our limits. Okay, this was the longest the car could be, and that's the shortest it could be. So our car is going to start, I like to start like right in the middle of that for the length. That way, if I am over or under a little bit, it's not going to be too close to the limit. Now, with this year's design, the wheels have to be outside the car. All right, and so let's just try just to get some rough sketch here of something. All right, and to do that, there's a few different commands. You could try SK for sketch. All right, and this one I'm not as familiar with as others, but it's you take and hold down the mouse button, you can kind of just sort of draw just sort of a sketched line. And if I hit enter, And that's pretty rough, right? I don't really like that one for this particular, and it's in all these separate little bitty line segments. And so I'm going to hit Control Z. We'll do SPL for spline, enter. And I'm going to hover over this point right here, this intersection, and aim it to the right. And I believe it'll be 5 millimeters, so 5, enter. So that's right in between those two lines. All right, for my next one, I'm going to choose, I want to go above the axle hole somewhere here eventually. So I'm going to choose this as the next point. And you'll probably have to do this a few times, just kind of play around with it. I'll choose that. And then I can kind of go back down a little bit if I want to. Click there. I'm just sort of clicking along the way. And I have to get above the CO2 chambers. So I'm going to start going up now. And I want to be above that. And I want it to kind of taper back to the back. And I'll click there, and then I'll aim it kind of out this way and hit the space bar to end the command. And I want it to kind of taper toward the back. It'll reduce some of the drag as air flows, and then all of a sudden there's a vacuum behind the car. It can sort of produce almost like a suction effect at the back. So if it kind of tapers down a little bit, that's not a bad thing. So I might actually even increase that a little bit, something like that. I'll hit escape, because you can select this spline and you can move the grip points around a little bit. You can kind of adjust sort of the shape. Wherever you've clicked, you can adjust. I'll hit escape there. And I could leave the bottom of my car flat. And I just realized that I'm drawing in the wrong layer. This is parameters. I'll select that, click the drop down, car body, hit escape. And so I think I want the car maybe flat along through here, but I want it to kind of taper up again toward the back. So SPL, and I'll go ahead and click right there. And I want it to get down to where it's down here, but I can do this a couple ways. I can go this way, or I could sort of curve it. Let's see. If it wants to snap to something you don't want it to snap to, you can hit F3, and I will turn off your snaps for a minute. F10 will turn off your polar tracking for a moment, so you can be free to kind of draw this however you want. I'll click there, and then I want it to kind of snap right along here. I want this from this point to the bottom of my axle to still be the same distance I had before. So I'm going to stop it right about here. So if I want to snap to this line where my cursor is, I have to do NEA and enter. And so it's the nearest snap. Okay, it's sort of forcing it to snap to whatever my cursor is nearest to. I'll do right about there. And then I'll aim it kind of out here and hit space bar. So then I could kind of like adjust this if I want it a little different. And I might try it the other way and see if I like that. But then it comes out here and then it sort of stops and sharply changes. I don't want any of those sharp, sudden changes if I can help it, because the air, again, there'll be a vacuum and it will produce sort of a suction effect. So I think I'm going to try something here. I'm going to delete that, SPL, from, let me turn my snaps back on, F3. All right, I'm going to go from here. I'll click there, and I'll click here. And then I'll come down and NEA, enter. I'll click there and enter. And then I'll have to kind of move this. And I actually think I want another grip point here. So if I hover over this one, this fit point or vertex, it's not really a vertex. I can add a fit point somewhere. I'll click here. So now I have a little more ability to kind of adjust things as I want. I'm going to make sort of an S shape so it smoothly sort of transitions toward the back, a little more smoothly than before. Whoops. If it does that, I can hit Control Z and undo that. And I just realized I'm still in the parameters layer. I'm going to move it to that layer, so the next time I draw something, it will be in that layer. In the meantime, MA, enter. I'm going to match that. So I click that, and then I'll click this and enter. And I'll go ahead and do a line, L, enter from here to here. And enter again to start the line command. Hit there to the end of this other green line here. I'll enter. And let me show you this. So temporarily, I'll click up here and turn off the zero layer, the white lines with this little light bulb. There it goes. And that's why I drew that line there and the line down here, because when I turn that off and only see the car body, it will look like that. All right, I'm gonna hit escape because it's doing weird things. And right here, it was kind of like dipping below the car just a tad. So I'm gonna adjust that a little bit. I can kind of step back and see how aerodynamic it seems. The only reason I'm kind of coming back down and then back up is I wanted to kind of cut some weight out of the car. If I have a really light piece of wood that I'm making this out of, I might actually want this to be not as far down. I might have to do that later. But for right now, we'll leave it like that. All right, so let me turn my zero layer back on. And I will save it as soon as I fix my problem with saving to Google Drive. But let's stop there for now. This is a long video, I know. In the next video, I think we will do this on the top view and sort of sketch in some lines for how we think we might want to do the car in the top view. So, yeah, I'll stop for now, and we'll see you in the next video.